I'm getting ready to record, and this is the help that I have today. How cute is that face? Yeah, I know you're not sleeping. I'm not sure how to start this video because we're talking about budgeting, but it's not budgeting for a cruise. We're budgeting for all of the things that come after you pay for your cruise fare. Everybody knows that Disney cruises are sort of expensive, and definitely way more expensive than something that you would do on like a Carnival cruise. So budgeting for a cruise with Disney is different than budgeting for a cruise with a different cruise line. And when you cruise with Disney, your cruise fare is not all inclusive. You can cruise and only pay for the gratuities that automatically accrue at the end of the cruise, and that's all you have to pay for. If you want to cruise like that, you can. I've never done it that way. I'm gonna try it someday, but I've never cruised and never bought anything in the gift shop, or never played bingo, or never done laundry on the ship. So today I want to talk to you guys about how I budget for the onboard expenses, because when we started cruising with Disney in 2010, I was a kid, and so I didn't do any of the vacation planning. My mom did most of it, and I think when we came home the first time, it was a big shock at the end of the cruise when you get your statement. It was kind of a shock to see how much we spent on board, because we didn't expect the onboard gratuities because nobody told us about it, and we bought the souvenirs. But when you're paying for things with your Key to the World card, and then at the end of the cruise you get a statement summing everything up for the entire week, or if you're on the Panama Canal cruise it's 2 weeks, or if you're on the Dream for a weekend cruise it's 3 nights, but still you haven't paid for anything for those days, and then all of a sudden at the end you're seeing everything that you've bought for the entire cruise, and sometimes it can be a shock. So a couple of years ago, my mom asked me to sort of create a budget just to kind of get an idea of what we're going to be spending on the ship. And I like to overestimate things so it's not a surprise. I always budget for things that I don't think that we're going to do, like laundry. I never really do laundry on the ship unless it's absolutely necessary, and that's really only on the longer cruises. And so on a 2-week Panama Canal cruise, I'll take 1 week worth of clothes and wash everything and re-wear it. So I take less that way, and it's just easier to take 1 week worth of clothes and do laundry than to pack so much stuff. But when I started doing this budget, I budgeted for the things that we would have to pay for at home and to get to the cruise, and then the things that we would pay for while we're on the ship. So today I'm going to kind of walk you through the things that you might need to think about when you're getting ready to go on your cruise, or when you're planning your cruise, so you kind of have an idea of what you might spend. I'm not going to talk specific numbers today, but I'll give you an idea of what some things cost, just because I think it's important to give you an idea, but then you'll know what you will spend money on and you know what you won't spend money on. So just take everything with a grain of salt, because everything won't apply to everybody, but you'll know that some things will apply to you and you know that some things won't. So use your best judgment. And then this is just to kind of help you know or plan what you might spend on the ship. And if you do the math and everything comes out to a big number that you can't afford, then you know that you'll have to cut back somewhere, or you can't do something, you know. So just, I think this will be helpful when you're planning your cruise, because it is important to have a budget, so it's not such a big surprise. So the first thing I have on my list is pet care. We have 2 dogs and 2 cats, and we can't leave them home alone, because somebody has to walk the dogs and somebody has to scoop the cat poop out of the litter box, and it's important to us to have somebody to care for our pets. But that's something that we had to budget for because we were going on the cruise. It's not something that we would do if we didn't have to, but you know, we've got to have somebody to take care of our pets. The next thing on our list is airfare. Now, we live in Central Florida now, so when we go on a cruise out of Port Canaveral, we don't fly anymore. But if we were to cruise out of San Diego, we would have to fly to San Diego, and then we would have to fly home from whatever port that the ship comes into. Next on the list is parking at the port. If you have a car, if you've rented a car, if you live in the area, or you're driving into the port and you gotta park your car, budget for parking. Most of the time you pay for the day you embark through the day you disembark. So if you've got a 7-night cruise, you pay for 8 days of parking. If you don't have a car and you're not going to park, if you're flying into the Orlando airport, or if you are staying at Walt Disney World before the cruise, you can do the Disney transfer, and they will get you from the airport to the port, or from your Walt Disney World resort to the port. You could take a taxi, but that's something that you should budget for because it's not cheap. I think parking a car is $17 a day, and I think that the express from Disney is $50 per person. Getting into the stuff that you'll need to pay for on the ship. So onboard gratuities. I've made a video about this, but to keep it short and sweet, automatic gratuities. There are 4 people you pay automatic gratuities, and they automatically accrue on your onboard account for every guest in the stateroom. And it is $13.50 per guest per day of the cruise. And if you want to see a breakdown, I will link my video about this in the description box. Onboard internet packages. If you cannot live without Facebook or the internet or email, or if you have to work while you're on the ship, you'll need to buy internet. Now, every stateroom, if you log on the very first day of the cruise before midnight, you can get 50 free megabytes of internet. The largest internet package on the ship is 1,000 megabytes, and it is $89. But if you can't live without internet, then you need to consider paying for the internet package. Adult dining. If you're planning on doing Palo or Remy brunch dinner, Remy does a dessert tasting. Palo meals run $40 for brunch and for dinner per person. And Remy meals vary between $50 and $125 per guest. And that's all of those meals do not include the wine tasting. So you can add a wine accompaniment to it for an additional charge. And then you'll be responsible for paying the gratuity for those meals also. We always like to have a souvenir budget, and what we do is we break it down per person. So if I think I'm gonna buy a shirt or 2 while I'm on the ship, then I'll budget what I think is gonna be appropriate for that. If you drink alcohol, alcohol is not included on this cruise. There are no alcohol packages. At the beginning of the cruise, you can order beer to be sent to your stateroom because you've got a fridge in your stateroom. So you could buy like bottles of beer to be sent to your stateroom on the first day. You could buy the beer mug and then get discounted refills for the beer mug. But that's something that you'll need to budget for. If you like the souvenir drink cups, that's something that you should budget for. Alcoholic beverages are usually pretty reasonable unless you're buying an expensive bottle of wine or an expensive glass of wine, but the drink of the day is generally, I think, $5 or $5.50. They have a morning special, which is mimosas, Bloody Marys, or screwdrivers, and I think that's $4.50 from 10:30 until noon. Also, beverage seminars. Now, beverage seminars are tastings, right? So they will have a mojito tasting or a mixology class. So a beverage seminar is sort of like a educational class. They're an hour long and they're focused on one type of drink usually. So they range in cost between $23 and $38, I think is the most expensive one. And these are for adults only. Cove Cafe coffees are also an additional cost. You can get anything, any kind of coffee drink that you want at the Cove Cafe. I usually get a latte, and sometimes I'll get like a flavor in my latte, but an unflavored latte, just this plain latte, is $3.50. So it's really pretty reasonable. If you add a flavor, I think it's $5. And Cove Cafe coffees accrue automatic gratuities. Room service tips. Some people like to tip cash. We usually just tip on the receipt, and so we don't have to worry about taking cash with us. But you can tip cash for room service, and sometimes it's handy to have cash to tip luggage porters when you arrive at the port and when you get off the ship on your last day, because they help you collect your luggage and they get you through customs. So it might be handy to have some cash for that. If you like movie popcorn like I do, and you think you might be interested in buying a popcorn bucket, for some people like me, that popcorn bucket is a great investment because you know that you're going to fill it all the time. And sometimes you might just become best friends with the popcorn guy, and that's totally normal. But it's something that you'll need to budget for. Popcorn buckets, I think, are about $15, $20, depending on the kind of bucket and if it lights up or not. And refills are really cheap for the popcorn bucket refills. Including tip, the popcorn bucket refill on the ship is $1.73. There is no gambling on Disney ships. The closest thing you're gonna get to gambling on board a Disney cruise is bingo. And I think that the cheapest bingo package is $40. I think the cheapest bingo package is $40, and then for the first time you play. And then they do something called loyalty pricing. So if you play once and you buy the package and then you play again, you get a cheaper package. You get a cheaper price for the same package. Children are not allowed to play bingo on their own. They may play bingo if they are supervised by an adult. The Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique is something that a lot of parents like to take their kids to. The cruise is a great place to do it because you're on board the ship, and so there's really not much else that you're missing out on. It's not like you're doing it in the park and you're missing out on your park day. So when you're on the ship, there is a Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique on board, and there are lots of packages. I mean, if you want to do it to the extreme, you totally can. But if you are thinking that you want to do it on the cheaper side of things, take your own costume for your kid, because the cheapest package for the Bibbidi Bobbidi Boutique is $79.95, and it's called the Night Package. And I think that's where you can get your child dressed up like a knight, sort of like Prince Philip in Sleeping Beauty. And the carriage package is $99.95, and that includes the hair glitter and the makeover and the hairstyle, and I think they get nail polish too. If you have a small child under 3 that is not potty trained, then you might consider taking your child to the Small World Nursery, which is sort of like babysitting for small children. Small World Nursery charges $4.50 per half hour for the first child. Any child after the first child is $4 per half hour in the nursery. Nursery services must be booked online before you get on the ship because their time slots fill up. If you're unable to book anything, always try once you get back on the ship. Port adventures can be really expensive. When we first started cruising with Disney, we did a port adventure in every port. We went scuba diving a couple of times. We've done the salsa and salsa in Cozumel, and that one is so much fun. You learn to make salsa and then they teach you how to dance. Adults really like that one because it includes margaritas with the price, but it can be really expensive to do port adventures in every port. When we stopped doing port adventures, it saved us a lot of money. So maybe consider doing something on your own if you feel comfortable doing that, or booking something through the third party directly, or maybe just staying on the ship, because that's something we like to do. And honestly, staying on the ship has saved us a lot of money because we're not buying souvenirs in the port, and we feel safe on the ship, and we know that the food is included on the ship. And this section includes any port adventures you might do on Castaway Cay. So if you rent a bicycle, or if you're thinking you want to have a cabana for the day, or tube rentals. So just consider everything in every port that you might want to do, and take that into consideration for your budget. Spa and salon packages can be really expensive. I think there are discounts available for spa packages for DVC owners and for Disney Visa card holders, but the price can still be pretty unreasonable. So think about maybe doing your spa packages on port days, because they can be much cheaper on port days instead of on sea days. Photo packages are something else you might want to consider. Photo packages are neat because you can purchase them before you ever get on the ship. So you can prepay for your photo package. And there are lots of options for a photo package. You could buy one picture, you could purchase 10 photos, you could buy all of the photos, you could buy none of the photos. And so we always like to buy the photos on the ship instead of prepaying for them, because what if we don't like them? We always like to make that decision on the cruise, on the ship, in the last couple of days, just because, you know, if you know early on that you want to get all of the pictures of your kids, then yeah, go ahead and prepay that package, because it's not something you'll have to worry about paying on the cruise. If you are planning to take advantage of a placeholder or an onboard booking for a future cruise and getting that 10% discount, then your placeholder is going to be $250 deposit, or if you book a cruise, it is a 10% deposit for that cruise. So take that into consideration. I think they usually ask what credit card you want to put it on, but usually I just put it on the credit card that's on file on our onboard account. But taking that into consideration is really important. On board the Disney Fantasy, there is a very exclusive, very expensive event. It's called the Palo Be Our Chef experience. So it is $279 per guest. They dress you up as a chef at Palo, and they take you into the Palo kitchen and they teach you how to make a meal at Palo. And then they take you into the dining room and they serve you food made by the chef that is basically the same thing that you made, but it's made by the chef. I will link a video in the description box. My friend Lynn in Alaska actually did this experience, and I'm kind of jealous that she did, but she made a video about her experience with the Palo Be Our Chef, and I think it looks really interesting. So if you have any interest in that, I'll link that video down below. If you've been to Castaway Cay before, you probably know that there is a functioning post office on the island. So if you have any interest in sending postcards to the United States to yourself or to some friends, usually it takes several months to get to the final destination, so you know, keep that in consideration. We always send postcards to ourselves and to our friends every time we go, and it's really interesting to see how long it takes to get there, because 3 months later we'll be getting text messages, did you send me a postcard from the Bahamas? Yeah, yes we did. But you can buy Bahamian stamps. You must use Bahamian stamps for these postcards. You can buy them in that post office if it's open. You must use Bahamian stamps to send postcards from the Bahamas. If you want to buy those stamps on the island, you must pay cash, and you can only buy them if the post office is open. Now, there's no guarantee that it will actually be open when the ship is there. You can also buy these stamps at guest services on the ship before you get off the ship to go to Castaway Cay, which is what we usually do, and they are 65 cents a piece. So as you can see, there are additional expenses once you get on the ship. None of these things are essential, none of these things are life-changing, but it is really important to know how much you're planning to spend on the ship and just be reasonable, you know. What I do is I make an Excel doc. I open Microsoft Excel on my computer and I type in the cost of things and, you know, what they are, and so I will add it up in Excel and I'll print it out and I put it in my cruise book so I can see what we might be spending money on the ship, and then I put that in my cruise book that I take with me, and it kind of helps me keep track of where our expenses are. We never go over what we buy because usually we don't buy any souvenirs, so just kind of, you know, be reasonable. I like to overestimate because it's better than being surprised at the end. I hope that somebody found this helpful. If you have any questions about creating an onboard budget or the cost of something, please leave your questions in a comment down below and I will get to them. I really appreciate having you here today, and you'll see me really soon. Bye!